Hello and welcome to Let's See It.
The podcast that explores how you can use improv skills in your day-to-day life.
I'm Rebecca Tanwin, award-winning voice artist, actor and improviser.
And I'm Kiva Murphy, award-winning actress, teacher and co-owner of Barcelona Improv Group.
So, let's see it!
Hello everybody and welcome to this episode of Let's See It. And we have a wonderful guest with us here this week. So let's give a beautiful round of applause introduction to Carles Caño.
Hi, how are you?
Hi Carles, how you doing?
Fine, really fine. I just came from a mentoring session and I'm like here prepared for this great podcast.
Nice. So, Carles, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? All of those sort of things.
Well, currently, I'm working. Usually that means, what are you working on? I'm a freelancer on training and communication, public speaking, storytelling and humor. And that's the main thing I'm doing. I used to be an IT teacher, but I was like very bored about IT. So now I do more like soft skills stuff.
And when did you first start getting into improv?
Well, actually, I heard about improv a long time ago, and it was like, I have to do this. And I called a friend called Roger, do you want to join me to do improv? Okay, I find a place, I go to a website, and I see improv, and I see at the site, stand-up. And I said, what? They teach stand-up? Why didn't nobody tell me that they teach stand-up? So I called my friend, do you mind if we switch to stand-up? No, I love stand-up. So, and we did stand-up, but after 1.5 years, we did as well improv. And then the pandemics came, and then I said, I want to do improv again. And I found Barcelona Improv Group, and now I'm spending part of my salary there.
And lots of your time and energy.
I love that. And the stand-up you did, was it in English or was it in Spanish?
In Spanish, but I'm thinking of going back to stand-up, and I'm a bit masochistic, I don't know the word in English, but I want to do it in English maybe. I wrote some things in English to do stand-up, but then I stopped because too many things. I'm this kind of person that wants to do many things, but then you realize that you don't have so much time or energy.
I think improv actually attracts a lot of people who have that kind of vibe. They just want to do everything, try everything. Yeah, that kind of energy.
Yeah, I'm curious about the moment that when you decided to leave IT, when you said you were bored and you decided to go into communication, storytelling, humor. What was that moment or process like?
Okay, it was like in 2008 or 2007, I discovered the blogs and I began blogging. And then, almost accidentally, I started a blog with a friend of mine about public speaking. And then it was like side by side. I was teaching IT, and then I began to do some talks, some courses, some workshops. And I was doing like both things, mainly the teaching, the IT teaching. But then maybe in the morning I did a training for, people working, other people, and they were so interested. They asking questions, and at the end, I really like it. And then in the afternoon, 16, 17 years old guys, because in IT, there's just guys. And it was like, what do we have to do now? Come on, can we go home 1 hour before? And it was like, in the same day, I had both worlds. And I said, I love more the attitude of the grown-up people. And I think that I also love more these soft skills than the IT. So it took me like, I think, 10 years. But in 2018, I said, I quit my IT job. The only thing I miss is my salary, but because now I don't have a salary, as a freelancer, maybe how it is, but.
Yeah, we recognize that feeling on a very personal level.
We know how that feels. The fear of the freelancer. It is kind of an interesting one, the freelancer thing, because at the same time, I often say this to people, like they say, why do you enjoy being a freelancer? I said, well, you are fully in control of everything. When you're in a 9 to 5, you have kind of like, I will make this much. This is how far I can go. And then I can get promotion. Whereas when you're a freelancer, you run your own business, basically. You're a solopreneur. And you can really make it as big or as unique to you as you want. And that's a huge power. Obviously, that comes on the downside of having less stability, certain other things. But obviously, you also have those huge freedom and flexibility in there as well. So it's very exciting, but also, yeah, I understand.
But
Scary.
I always said, you know what's the best about being self-employed or freelancer? That you don't have boss. And you know what's the worst? That you don't have boss. You know, because everything, you have to decide everything, the good and the bad. So, and sometimes it's like, oh. Yes.
When you want to call in sick, you're like, oh no, oh, it's me.
I know what you're
Again.
I've got no one to call.
But I think a lot of people who do improv are also freelancers in different kind of ambitos in different areas, because I think that attitude of being able to kind of roll with the punches and go like, oh, now I'm in charge and now I'm not in charge and now I accept and now I let go. This kind of improv ability to be kind of both places at once, to be in charge and also not be in charge. I think it attracts a lot of people who are in the creative arts or have like a freelance mentality or mindset. So I think like attracts like a certain amount.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, definitely. Carles, you said something interesting about soft skills. And I read that on your website as well. I was like, soft skill? What is a soft skill? Just to explain it to anyone who might not know what that is.
Yeah, you know, there are the hard skills, the knowledge you gain when you study at college or high school or whatever, maths or engineering. And there are the soft skills that I don't like they say soft, but but it's like, you know, about collaboration, communication, time management, and this leadership and this kind of things, and creativity. So I realized I love this kind of things, and I don't like that they are called soft, but that's a name that you have. So
I guess it's
Should
because
we
they are...
rename them?
Yeah, let's rename them.
What are we going to call them instead of soft skills? Interpersonal skills sounds a bit
Mutable
like...
skills. It feels like it's the reason they're called soft is because it's not like a fact. It's a sort of a much more fluid
Transformative.
entity.
fluid skills.
Fluid skills.
Fluid skills?
Oh, I don't know.
That sounds a bit sexual.
That sounds a bit weird
No.
as well. I'm really
Is that what
good
you
with
went
fluid
to?
skills.
For once in my life, I was not thinking in that, but yeah, I see your point.
She went, yeah.
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna veto fluid skills.
We need another name for it. But yeah, no. But that's what it means. Yeah, that kind of more.
I think that in Spanish we say social and personal skills, but it's very long. So soft skills. I love, one of the things I love about English is the economy of words and expressions. Soft skills, you know, that you have it.
So you've written a book called Storyfulness, and it's all about using the power of storytelling to kind of train or communicate stories, communicate facts, to help with learning, basically, through storytelling. So would you tell us a bit more about what inspired you to write the book? And yeah.
Well, I wanted to write a book about public speaking, but I had, you know, the imposter syndrome, and it took me 8 years since I did it. And I wanted to, you know, I really love storytelling. There are some things that I think they are like foundations. One of them is storytelling, the other is humor, and the most recent one is improv. Okay? Yeah.
Tripod of life.
I think they are foundational because storytelling is everywhere, you know, in your personal life, at work. I know many people at work, at the workplace, don't do it, or maybe not in the best way, but that doesn't mean that you cannot harness all this power of telling good stories and relevant or germane stories. And so I had the need to write about this, and I wrote the book, and it was a very practical book. So it's because I like reading books a lot, and I've read many books about storytelling. Some of them for people who write scripts for movies, or maybe for writers. I'm not a, you know, I don't write the novels, or I am not a, you know, script guy, like guionista, you know. But I'm learning all the time about storytelling, and I want to see how I can, you know, bring it to the formal communication world, to the corporate world, to the teaching world. So, and for me, there was like a lack of, there is no, or I have not discovered any book that it's like introduction to storytelling. in a very practical way. Because sometimes it's like, yeah, storytelling is good, use it, is connect with people, and you give, I don't know, there is emotion, but then, okay, but how? How do I do it? So that was the purpose of my book.
And I guess there are certain books about how to create stories for, say, film, for stage, like you mentioned, but then how to use the power of storytelling in applied to business, or applied to the day-to-day, applied to giving, I don't know, a presentation, the finance department giving a presentation. Something that could be very boring, full of a lot of facts, and how they can use storytelling to make that more interesting and also to make people remember it. Because isn't there, I read this as well, I didn't know this, isn't there a link between storytelling and actually people retaining knowledge, retaining what's being told to them?
Yeah, they usually remember the story much more than the facts. And sometimes people get frustrated because they want you to remember the data, but our brain is wired for stories, not for data or abstract things. So, and I say, what do you prefer? That they just remember the story, or they don't remember anything at all? So maybe if they remember the story, they will, okay, what was the other thing? And they will check the internet, I don't know. But I've seen that there are some places that storytelling it's maybe easier, because in the corporate world sometimes there are some presentations like reporting every month, and they expect the executive summary, and they want all the information on a slide, that you die suddenly from too much information. And I tell them, there is a story there, but it's buried, you have to and dig it up. So you have to, and when you tell them that they can tell stories at the workplace, sometimes they look at you with a very weird face, like, come on, really? We're at the workplace, And when you are saying, okay, you lose market share and you want to regain it again, so that's a story, but don't put it a lot of charts or graphs and tables. People put tables with 14 rows and 12 columns, and it's like, come on, nobody can read all that information, so it's crazy.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm curious about this idea. So I also teach improv in corporate settings, and normally what happens is someone in the department, like a HR person or a marketing person, has booked me or booked you in, like, come and teach a storytelling session or an improv session. And I'm curious how you break the ice when you see 15 people looking at you with this face of like, who are you? What the fuck is this? Why is this worth my time? Why should I leave my desk? All of those faces kind of in one. And I'm curious how you break the ice, or how you kind of melt this moment.
I point to the elephant in the room. So I say, I know what you're thinking. I see your faces, but I'm convinced that will be helpful to you. We will find a way to land it properly in your context. But I really believe in storytelling at the workplace, and you are already using stories. Maybe you don't like the word story or storytelling, and sometimes I reframe it as human experiences. There are conflicts, there are characters, they have some challenge to face, so that happens to you all the time. Mm-hmm. So sometimes are the words that you choose that make people cringe,
That's very true, because I guess storytelling has a aspect of it being frivolous, maybe, or childlike, or something, which it isn't. I mean, I think it's very, very human to tell stories, and we're doing it, like you said, all the time. Stories are happening to us always, and it's a human experience. And it's probably one of the oldest art forms ever, the orator sitting around the fire telling a story about, often inspired by things that have happened in the day or something like that. It might be fictional or exaggerated for entertainment purposes, but often it is sharing of those stories was a very big part of humans. I think it's very deeply embedded in us.
Mm-hmm. But then you have an enemy that suddenly puts people in data mode, in very logical mode, and that enemy is PowerPoint. I'm using PowerPoint, but PowerPoint is not the first thing I open up when I prepare something. It's the last thing I open. So first comes the structure, who's my audience, what do I want to say, my main message, and the contents, and And then what about the emotion, story, or humor? And at the end comes the slides. And this morning I came from mentoring a woman that will do a presentation for a kind of contest of presentation like innovation. And it was very funny because when she used the slides, it was in this mode. It was not that bad. It was actually quite good. But then when she finished and we were talking, and I said, Dad, that thing you just said, why didn't you say it before? That is, you have to say it in your presentation. That's the problem you're trying to solve. So, and they are like taking more care about the slide, the title, or the image, the message or the structure they want to say.
I think there's this mode that people, when they want to be serious and they're like, I'm very good at my job and I've done all this homework or years of whatever it might be in the past, and to say that I must be serious. And then you almost see people when they do a presentation and then they finish, they get rid of their security blanket, they breathe, and then they're like, so any questions? And then they're like actually human, actually themselves, but they're so scared of messing up or of going blank or not seeming important and feeling like what you said, Bex, of like being childlike or being frivolous. I wonder, where do you think that fear comes from, to be like, I have to be in this mode? Is it just protection? Is it that they're copying other people?
I think so. I think they saw this in the corporate world. So, okay, that's the way the things are done here. So I will do the things the same because I don't want to do things in a bad way. So I think that's one of the things. And that reminds me something I read in a book that the last book of the Big Book Club, it was called Yes and someone just had to give a talk about, and there was kind of some error, and it's like you have to give a talk about neuroscience or whatever, and that person was not an expert on neuroscience, but I remember if he was he or she, but well, I would say they did like they did improv, so they took the challenge and they had the audience and, okay, what's the main challenge you have in this field? And people began saying things. Okay, and who has an answer for that? And it was like 1 hour, and at the end everyone was like so happy. It was like they loved it, and and that person didn't have any idea of that field of expertise, but they played this improv game about, okay, I will ask the audience what are their main challenges. I will ask if someone, and it was like, wow, why couldn't we do this more often?
That's so clever. That's kind of like facilitating a chat using the hive mind of the audience. And you are still the linchpin of that talk, and it's all coming off and through you, but you're just using all the expertise that's right around you, rather than relying solely on everything that's kind of inside you. That's so fun and so clever.
I had a moment where storytelling also saved me a couple of years ago. I got this job as a tour guide. And because of many years of improv, I say yes to everything. So someone said, can you be a French tour guide? I'm like, yep, sure. And it was a week-long trip in Ireland. I was living in London at the time. And so I had to fly home, and then I had a coach load of, 40 people or something. And I brought them around for a week. And there was an itinerary that was made, but there was zero script. It was just like this castle, then this church, then this dinner. So I had to just make up a script all day long. And the first few days, it was a nightmare. And I was trying to make stuff up, and it was before iPhones were really a thing, or they were kind of signal, but not as much. So I printed out, paper, and I was like, oh, this is the Black Abbey on the right, and this is this thing. And I was just kind of obviously bullshitting, and they could smell it a mile away. And there was one woman particularly on the tour who had a book, and I would go, this is 17th century. She's like, 16th. And it was a nightmare, and I wanted to get out of there. And I tried to quit because, like, you guys gave me nothing. Like, I really am going in so blind. And they said, you can't quit. So I just decided one day, like maybe halfway through, I just decided, like, I'm just going to tell them stories instead. And so they were true stories. And then I also got them to make up stories. So I said, see this river? I went there with my ex-boyfriend on a kayak and all these ducks came on and we had bread. You know, I just told them random anecdotes and stories. And they were like, this is amazing. We can do the tour. We can see the cathedral or whatever. And we can, you know, do the museum exhibit. But what we want from you is your stories.
Your kind of local storytelling about your personal experiences.
Yeah, just completely personal.
That is
Total random.
That is something else as well. That because a story can be very personal, and it's a way that you really connect with people when they open up and tell you something that's personal and vulnerable. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but even just a little moment in their life that meant something to them. It's a real privilege, and it connects you very quickly with that person, rather than just facts of I was born here. I did. If you say like, yes, but my village is like this, and at one point I walked down and I saw this is the place I first like you said, canoed with my boyfriend and ducks attacked us. Well, that wasn't quite what you said, but
they didn't attack us. But that's the way there's a perfect example of exaggeration.
Yeah.
The next iteration of that story.
Kiva was attacked by ducks.
That's fake news.
Yeah. And that's how stories can get out of hand.
So, you know, I love a quote from Brené Brown that says, stories are data with soul.
Oh, yeah.
I love Brené Brown.
Yeah, she's awesome. And I love it, you know, because usually when people do presentations, they have plenty of brain, but they lack heart. So, and well, this is in our way of telling it now, but Aristotle said the logos, it was the data, and the pathos, I don't know, it was the emotion, the connection with the audience. And usually in formal communication at the workplace, usually in universities, people just do mainly logos, mainly brain. And we cannot pay attention when it's all about data, all about facts. You know, I was in a big company doing a course training about how to do presentations at the workplace, and they did presentations. So I was there with my notebook, with my pen, there paying all my attention. Okay, it was like a 5-minute presentation, and it was like one of the first ones, so it was full of data on the slides, and it was all data, and I was like there, like I wanted to, you know, get all the information, and it was very hard for me to pay attention, and I was a trainer, so imagine someone that is like, okay, another boring presentation, I will make like I'm listening, but I will think about why I will cook for dinner tonight, or, you know, and I wanted to receive all the information, but it was hard for me. So imagine the rest of the people. So it's kind of crazy.
That thing of just taking in raw data, like you said, it doesn't really work for humans. We find that very hard to retain in kind of a large quantity. It reminds me a little bit of people who do memory things. They do like learning a deck of cards or something like that, and they'll attach it to a story. Like I walk in and I see 3
like Mind Palace.
Mind Palace sort of thing. There where people can retain huge amounts of highly detailed information, but it's because it's placed within a location, it's placed within a story, it's placed within a structure. It's not just pure facts just reeled off one after the other like a machine. Our brains don't really work like that, and I think it's really interesting to then start to harness how to get your message across and that data across in a way that's engaging and fun, and just will keep that, people will remember that message rather than just like disappearing from their brain.
You know, now it suddenly came to my mind a game that I have not played, but I have seen on the internet that mixes like improv and PowerPoint presentations. It's like you are there on the stage and they put you slides, but random slides, and you have to make a coherent presentation.
Yeah. We used to play it a lot during COVID. We played it a huge amount. It's called PowerPoint Karaoke.
Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
Yeah. And you have to just start your presentation and you're like, okay, and then here's a picture of a duck and you're like, okay, incorporate the duck somehow.
Yeah, use it as a metaphor or whatever.
With the image. No, it's great game.
Could we do that on some Friday at Barcelona Improv Group?
Sure. Get the projector out. Yeah, we could.
So before we spoke about the tripod, storytelling, humor, and improv. So how can improv help you practice storytelling?
Wow, let's. How many time do I have? No, it's okay. I love improv because I love storytelling, and it's like you learn. It's very different to tell a story that you lived or maybe you read somewhere, than to create a story from scratch. So that's one of the, I think, first challenges you face when you do improv, and it's not the same. So, but then I think you learn and that okay, there is this structure about the story spine, once upon a time and every day, and then something happens, and then when you get that kind of structure, what's the thing, what's the inciting incident, what's the tilt, and then if you are on a scene and you are doing something and we're just talking heads. So you think, okay, we need here something to happen. So it's like and I think if you learn storytelling from books or from telling stories, then it's easy for you to do improv, but the other way around can also be true.
So I'm curious about what's your main go-to if someone has a block. So if you're helping someone with their presentation or you're mentoring someone like you mentioned, what would be the fail-safe thing that you would say or dynamic that you would run with them to get them to kind of allow the vulnerability, to allow them to kind of go into the story?
Well, I usually, if we are looking on the presentation as a whole, maybe it was because I was an IT guy and, I have a dark past because I was a computer science engineer. So I love structure and I love, okay, what are you, contents, the logos, the data. Okay, let's see what you want to say for who. And let's order it. What are the key points? And for each key point, what are you going to explain? So if you work really hard on that, then you feel more confident. And then about the storytelling, I would say that you have to be comfortable sharing what you are telling, the story you're telling. So if it's maybe you are too affected because it's something that when you tell the story, you begin to cry, maybe it's not right the moment to tell it, but maybe you can tell some other things that you have some distance, but that you can convey emotion because you remember what was that. And I think storytelling is about being vulnerable. So sometimes people share stories about all the successes they had. And usually you just hate them or you envy them. But we want to see the struggle and we want to see how you overcome those struggles. So, and sometimes people get confused and I'm sharing stories. But and on social media, people that are sharing stories about I'm here on this yacht and I'm here on this party and I'm here on this big company. And it's all about, you're doing all great things all the time. So what about, I don't know, any doubt you have or something that didn't went so well as you thought?
I think that's a very good point. And it's something I struggle with a little bit. What I put on my social media is things like, I've done this job, I've da. And people often come to me and say, oh my God, you must be working all the time. And like your life in Barcelona looks like a dream. I'm like, well, there are nice bits to all of that. And I'm really proud of the work I do and the lovely city that I'm lucky to live in. But there are tough bits as well that I just don't share because I personally don't feel comfortable to do that. But then I've spoken to friends who share that kind of stuff on LinkedIn and on social media that are much more vulnerable, and it gets a huge response because people really respond to it because it shows the human connection, that you aren't just a success machine. It's real, it's not kind of as curated.
And then that's where humor appears, because humor is about pain, but quoted pain. It's not a very hard pain. It's like, so if you share I don't know, 5 things not so glamorous about living in Barcelona. And then you are sharing those things that you are living and that maybe you are not showing in your Instagram stories. But,
I'm going to steal this.
But if you do it and you do it in a funny way, with some irony, with some exaggeration, with, I don't know, with emotion. How does make you feel, living on a noise that maybe it's on a street that is very noisy at night. So show us your emotion, even, it's 2 a.m. and tomorrow I'm waking up at 5 to go to the airport. But here people are so social. I love it,
But yeah, it's that. And I think maybe there's the point where you can be, and I do that sometimes, the comedy side of being vulnerable and being human. That I lean into that more than the kind of heartfelt emotion stuff. I just find that a bit, I don't know, from a business point of view. I'm happy to do that with friends, but from a business point of view.
But I think it's a culture as well.
That was my question. I remembered it.
It's like we're friends. It's like we have similar ideas. Go on then, you tell it. You go.
Carles, do you think there's different... Do we think that storytelling is different in different cultures? As in, do you find when you work with... if you work with people from different cultures, are they more comfortable with telling stories, more comfortable with standing up and telling their story? Are some people more reserved? Because personally, as a Brit, we are kind of told not to hold focus, particularly the Southerners. People in the north of Britain are much more chatty, much more will tell a story beautifully, known for being very good at telling stories. In the south, we're just not known for that. We're known for being reserved and quiet and really not sharing anything and being quite closed. So I don't know if you've come across that with different cultures and different storytelling.
Are you telling me that you are not chatty?
To fight.
Okay, yeah, there are differences, and because sometimes there are like some cultures where now I'm going to say like very general things, but in Western cultures usually it's about me, about the individual, and in Eastern cultures it's more sometimes about the community. So, and I read in a book, there is a English library in Barcelona called Backstory. You should go.
It's new.
And it's new and all English books. And I went there and I bought a book called How to Tell a Story from the people from the Moth. The Moth?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I really liked the book. And they shared this thing about it depends on the culture. And I think it was a woman from Nigeria or from some country from Africa that she had to speak like in first person, like I was there, I helped the other people, and she was uncomfortable because in her culture it's like you don't speak with the first person. It's like being, I don't know, like too snob or pretentious or so, and they changed that part. So she gave it a try just for the rehearsal to try new things, but so maybe she had to speak in plurals, So yeah, there are differences, and you have to. I always say you have to be comfortable with everything you do. If you make the audience, do some activity, I can go wild, and if I have 300 people, I can say, okay, in groups of 4 or 5, now you have 3 minutes to talk about this, and the room is like, whoa, and I have no problems with that, but I know that most of the people want there to do that. So you have to be comfortable with the story, with the activity, with anything you use.
I think there's something interesting about the third person, because in Ireland it's totally the opposite. We're known for being good storytellers and kind of music and storytelling. So I have the opposite feeling of you, Bex, of like, I don't think I'm good enough of a storyteller compared to all the other amazing storytellers that are kind of around me and in my culture. So I find that intimidating. I sometimes with improv, I think people find it easier because they're not playing themselves, right? They're playing a character, they're playing something that's really far away from themselves. They're playing a dragon with 4 legs, or they're playing, kind of something close to themselves, but like a heightened version. And I think the same with storytelling, that people with their businesses, they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about me and my struggles or my failures, my emotions, whatever. But if I can make the company or the product a character, it can be easier to tell the story of I've designed this pen and I can tell the story of how it came to be, how it failed, how it struggled. But because there's that distance between me and the thing that has the emotion and the, hopes and desires, it's a little bit easier to kind of place that on there. But I think I'm sure what you often get with companies is like, oh, but the company isn't a person. I'm like, well, it is. If any marketing and branding person would be like, this is the story of Coca-Cola, and this is the personality, the brand personality of that.
That's a very good point. Having that slight distance sometimes. I think that's what freaks people out a lot about public speaking, is they think it's them. And it is them, and there should be, it's part of them that they're exposing and they're sharing, and that's really brave and vulnerable, and why we love watching people on stage and why we love hearing stories, because it is a vulnerable place to be. But at the same time, you can make yourself comfortable, like you say, Carles, by doing certain things, sharing what you want to share, maybe creating some sort of distance, picking the right story, picking the thing that you're ready, having a structure, feeling comfortable within all of that. So there is definitely a way you can do public speaking and storytelling without feeling too exposed. I think that's what often people feel like.
Well, people say it's the tops the charts of the scariest thing. It's higher than death. People are more scared of public speaking. And seriously, when they do polls, like, what's the scariest thing? Public speaking, then death.
Yeah.
Is that really true, or is that myth? Because
I only heard this from Ella in our last podcast. So we've now said it in 2 podcasts. So we're going to make it true.
Fake news again.
No,
okay.
I read it. I read it somewhere, but I'll try and find it. And if I can find it,
I've heard about this many times, but I think that because many people don't do public speaking very often, but this is as improv as many things. It's like a muscle, and then it comes to a point when you want more opportunities to do public speaking.
Okay, this is going to be a game for the 2 of you. So fancy. So it's a game called You Can Say That Again. Have either of you played it before?
Nope.
No.
Wonderful. Great. So what's going to happen is you're going to do a scene. I'll give you a relationship and a location to get you started in a second. And then you get nervous. Is that what that face is?
Every time. I don't know why. Every time I'm like,
I can't do it. You totally can. Absolutely can. So I'll give you the setup, and then instead of me on the outside saying like new choice, like new way of doing things, what either of you will say in character is you will say, you can say that again. So if I've just said, oh, look over there, and then Beck says to me, you can say that again, I'm going to say that same phrase but in a different way.
okay.
Oh, you can see that again. You can say that. So I'll.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Does it make sense?
You can say
Say it again.
The sentence is you can say that again.
I'll
You can say that again.
You can say that again.
You can say that again, or a
Okay.
version of that. And that person, you can do it once or twice. So you can kind of, a bit like new choice, but from within, you can ask for a different tone. So the story will change from the way that they've said that phrase.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. Great. You are, who are you? You are 2 fisher people. Yeah. And you're on the boat hauling in the nets.
Okay.
Oh, Sammy, the net is broken again. What are we going to do? We don't have enough money to buy another one.
John, we're just going to have to tie it again with your amazing knot skills.
You can say that again.
With your amazing knot skills.
You can say that again.
With your amazing knot skills.
Let's do it, but I have to make a confession. I hate...
You can say that again.
But I have to tell you something.
You can say that again.
I have a secret, Sammy. I hate fixing webs or nets. It's like I get my fingers like with small injuries. But I do it. You know why I do it?
Why'd you do it, John?
Because you're my best friend. I don't really like fishing.
You can say that again.
I hate fishes.
You can say that again.
what am I doing here in a boat in the middle of this lake? Because
It's awful. Why do we do this? We smell all of the time, and our hands are like cut up to little ribbons and raw and red.
Wait, Sammy, I thought you loved this. I thought you loved fishing.
I hate this. I only do this because I thought you loved it.
Oh, really? Oh, so we can stop pretending we like fishing.
You can say that again.
So we can stop bullshitting.
We can say that again.
So we can go to the mall and buy things and, fuck the fishes.
Yes, we can buy fish in packets from supermarkets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's row this boat to shore.
Yeah, let's go back.
Okay, beautiful job.
But I had a question. It was like new choice that you had to say something completely different, or
Because I was playing it different. I was
Yeah.
playing it like
Yeah, you
different
were both-
tone.
That's on me. I should have explained it. It was supposed to be a different tone the way Bex was playing it.
Oh,
Carles,
just
you
different
made it extra
tone.
hard for yourself.
Oh.
And you made it extra hard for yourself by changing the phrase completely. So it should just be, I love you. You can say that again. I love you. You can say that again. I love you.
Okay.
But I think it worked really well.
But I think it was just two games smashed into one.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a whole story arc. Start, middle, and end.
Yeah.
Resolution, tilt, twist, confession. Oh my god, all the story classics. Carles, where can people find you? Where can they listen to you? We know you have a book, but you also have a podcast. Tell us all the places we can find you.
Yeah, there's a book called Storyfulness in Spanish. There is a presentastico.com, my webpage, and I'm on LinkedIn, and on Instagram, but I don't publish many stories because I hate social media. But you can, DM me if you want.
But we'll link all of that in the show notes and stuff as well, so people can find you.
Thank you very much. That was so interesting. I love talking about storytelling.
Wow, I love being here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very, very welcome.
I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
we're not in person, so we can't give you chocolate to reciprocate. Carles always gives gifts when he does his podcasts, or at least to me.
Well, you can give it to me next Thursday, Kiva.
Okay, sure.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.